so that we can attach it to our website for other parents and community members to view. So again, I want to thank you for your time today, and hopefully we'll have a lot of information to share with you. And at the end of this meeting, also a time for questions and answer period. Also joining us is Dr. Meeks, our superintendent, as well as our school administration, Heidi Chapman-Hoy and Joe Law Liberty from the middle school, and Amy Bomer and Aaron Halbert at the elementary school. Celine is not available to join with us today. We also have Anne Marie Williams, our new Director of Exceptional Student Services. So, as well as we have our representative from Edgenuity here, Chet Riddle, to also to meet and talk and to answer questions that you may have. So we're going to talk at the very beginning to kind of give an introduction of where we are with the online program. And as I said, Chet will get into the conversation and to some of the details of what Edgenuity has to offer through a presentation. And then at the very end, we will have that Q&A session. And at that point, I'll ask Jennifer Katara, our district office manager, to open up the chat bar where you can pose questions, and we'll answer your questions. So, yeah. So, as we know, we're got a big challenge ahead of us in the next several weeks with opening up schools. And we are working diligently with public health officials, with school administration, and continuing to receive guidance from CDE and other organizations on those parameters on opening school. Obviously, we're going to be in the very near future opening up the phase that we'd be entering on August 24th. And I know a lot of people are asking, well, which phase? I need to make a decision, you know, depending on which phase. And I think the best thing to understand about that is no matter what phase that we open up with on August 24th, there is a probability, likelihood of moving into another phase. If we're not opening, our intention and hope is to have online learning, or excuse me, in-person learning as much as possible. I think we all realize that is the best form of education. We have amazing teachers, amazing staff and administrators that delivers a high quality product. And that's our preferential, that's what we want. We know that that's where learning happens, and not just learning, but the connections and social and emotional needs that all of our students need. Obviously, that's where we want to be. That's what we want to do, but we also realize that we need to create a safe environment and considering the pandemic in front of us. So Dr. Meeks and the board are going to be evaluating that and assessing that. And there is a chance what we open up on August 24th will look different in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You know, our world, we're ready to adapt and to pivot to a different phase according to what the conditions of our community. So I know a lot of people are like, well, what is that first day going to be? I'd like for you to weigh your decisions. And I know these are very challenging, difficult decisions that weigh heavily on you and your heart and your family, and they're very critical, important. It's very stressful. But to look at the choice between what we're offering, that 100% online learning, not with how we're opening on that first day, but any of those phases, because there is a chance that we could be moving into those phases at different points through the year, whether it's all in person, whether it's distance learning. We're going to be nimble enough, and we're working hard with our staff and administrators on preparing for what those different phases could look like. So, but we realize, we understand, we get it, that you know, no matter what safety measures that we're putting in place and mitigation factors to create the safest learning environment possible, it might not be a place where your comfort levels as a parent that you want to. And that's the reason why we reached out to Edgenuity to provide this 100% online learning opportunity for you. Yeah, and that's where getting into some of that specifics of when you're helping you make that decision, if you're wanting to go into that 100% online learning, know that this is a decision that you would make for this first semester, starting from August until where we end in December. We'll reevaluate, reassess the situation, and at that point, if you'd like for your child to enter back into that in-person learning or whatever phase we're in January, you would have that option. But we are asking you to make this choice and to be able to go through that semester with the online learning program. As I said, Edgenuity is the online learning program. We're going to talk a lot about that. Students will all receive a district Chromebook, and students will also, we're going to get a lot into these details, would also be connected with an on-site mentor, a Steamboat Springs District teacher, and also 3 Edgenuity staff members. And we're going to talk more about that. I wanted to, so why Edgenuity? Why did we go with them? Well, one of the biggest reasons is their online curriculum is based on our Colorado standards that our teachers also teach from. And so that's very important from other online programs that aren't specific to Colorado standards. Obviously, when our kids transition, who have chosen to go online back into our school classroom, knowing that our standards are aligned and that will help with that transition. In fact, and this kind of goes down to that last point, 85% of schools, districts in Colorado are already using Edgenuity because of their alignment with our standards. Edgenuity has a proactive student outreach that Chet's going to speak to. Those virtual teachers that your kids will be assigned to aren't waiting for problems to arise and to be responsive. Instead, they're going to be connecting with your children in advance, forming relationships, making sure they're prepared for what the learning outcomes may be. Compared to other online learning programs, they have a low student-teacher ratio. They're industry leading. They have an engaging curriculum, as I said, with real teachers. And the curriculum is rigorous. This is going to be challenging, and we're going to provide some clarity on that, and your students can prepare and how you can support them with that rigorous content. Also, while we're partnering with Edgenuity is looking at some of the resources that they have for our teachers in the classroom. And so we're going to be looking at some of those online resources, their digital resources, whether it's some of the videos that are lined up with the curriculum or modeling lessons. And so some of our, many of our teachers in our classrooms will be using Edgenuity as a resource. Again, that helps with that transition. If you choose to have your child in that online program and they're moving back into the classroom, or vice versa, kid in the classroom moving towards the online learning, will be a little more seamless and a better transition. So we're partnering with Edgenuity as far as offering some of those curriculum resources in our schools, as well as the online learning. Chet's going to be talking here shortly about the different roles of the virtual teachers in Edgenuity, but I also wanted to talk about the supports that you would get from our in-person staff member who would be working with your student if you choose to go online. They would act as a liaison between your child and yourself and those Edgenuity teachers and coaches and support staff. So if your child's having a problem or if you're struggling with something, you could of course reach out to those Edgenuity staff members or to our person in our school building that your child might know or that you might know to help provide that support and liaison between Edgenuity staff members and the school. Obviously, they'd help with the registration and tech support on getting you signed up and ready to go. And they would be carefully monitoring the students' performance. And so there's a mechanism in which they can see if a child is on track, how they're performing, and if there are problems or areas that we need to address, they would be closely monitoring that and reaching out and providing that supports to that student, to that parent, or connecting with Edgenuity staff members on, I see where our child's behind here, not on pace. What can we do to make sure they're engaging and attending classes? Also, what's really important is we want your children to feel, if you choose the online program, that they're a part of our Steamboat Springs School District community. So we would continue, and this is where the liaison, our on-site mentor, would connect your child with counselors, with any social emotional learning programming, any school activities, to still make that connection happen. We want you to know that if you do choose this program, you are a Steamboat Springs School District student. You're on the online program, but you're still as important, and we want to reach out and make those connections as best as possible. So we could see where our counselors would continue to provide supports and mentoring and advice to your child, as well as any other, so as I said before, social emotional programming, whether it's connection circles or meeting with their teachers, but trying our best to keep that connection, so that when you do feel comfortable at the end of the semester, that transitioning back is more seamless. One thing that is important to understand is that the on-site mentor, our teacher, is not the instructor, and not even providing tutoring. Edgenuity provides those supports, and that's important to know. And I do think it's important for us to realize, and Chet will agree with me on this, that our hopes is that we can create that safe learning environment where your kids want to, or where you feel safe for our kids to go to school, because that is our recommendation. We hope that we understand that in-person learning with our school teachers is ideal, and it offers a high quality, and that by partnering with Edgenuity, we're not trying to supplant and say that the online program is as equal to what you're going to be getting with that in-person school district teachers. There's that differentiation piece. So there's those connections with your kids that Edgenuity or any online platform aren't going to be able to provide. So it is a different experience, and I think Chet will speak to that it's not to replace in full what Steamboat Springs school systems and schools can provide. So at that time, I think I'm going to introduce Chet, and he's going to go into more of the details and that learning platform of Edgenuity. How you doing, Chet? Welcome.
Thank you much, Jay. It's my pleasure to be here. Hello to all the Steamboat Springs families out there. I live down in Denver, and so I'm always excited to even though I'm signing in virtually, I always like to find an excuse to get up to Steamboat if I can. I know the virtual world we're living in now doesn't make it as easy to find an excuse sometimes, but I'm really happy to be here. I really value our partnership with Steamboat Springs, and really why I'm here and in working with Jay to prepare for this conversation is, I'm not here to steer families one way or the other to go into Edgenuity, especially not to go into Edgenuity if you don't think it's going to be the best fit for your students. So what I really want to do is give parents a really sound expectation of what you can expect to see from the curriculum, what you can expect to see from a time commitment, and how this curriculum is put together, some of the advantages, so you can really weigh your options to know and understand what's going to be the best fit for your child from a safety perspective, from a educational perspective. And as Jay mentioned, Edgenuity is by no means trying to supplant Steamboat Springs teachers. We're here to support them, support the district, and support our families. So Jay, if you want to go ahead and roll over the next slide. A little bit about Edgenuity itself. We have been a leading content or online curriculum provider since the late 90s. We were founded in 1998. Jay mentioned we do partner with over 85% of school districts in Colorado already. That takes a lot of different shapes and forms. I have a small summary on the screen in this slide. And really what I want to point out in this is we have partners on every shape and size across Colorado. We have some of the big largest school districts in the state, like the Jefferson counties, Douglas counties of the world, and then some of the smallest, most rural parts of the state as well. And what that really means is we can come to the table with a lot of experience in different instructional models, instructional needs that students, teachers, administrators, and families have, and apply a really high amount of nimbleness within our programming and our software to meet those needs effectively. So what I'm prepared to do, what I'm going to walk families through here, is a breakdown of what to expect for those elementary students, what it's going to look like when you're partnering with Edgenuity teachers, and then take a look at the middle school. Yep, so go ahead and hit that next slide, Jay. Thank you. So Edgenuity as a company, we provide online learning curriculum basically in two avenues, content only, or using that same content, the same online learning lessons supported by our instructors, our teachers of record. And what you're seeing on your screen here highlights some of the support infrastructure and the roles that are going to be available to you as families and your students specifically. I'll break down what these are specifically as we go through this presentation, but just as a quick summary, what this is highlighting is the close cooperation we're going to have between your district staff with that on-site mentor there at the left, our virtual instructor, which is our Edgenuity teacher, that can be complemented and supported by active tutors if you need it there in that concept coach. Jay, you guys still able to hear me okay? Just want to make sure.
Yeah, you had a little bit where you were muted out, but you're back.
Okay, cool. So going to the next slide, I'm going to talk a lot more about what those roles are as we go through this presentation, but that's just a quick overview. And I should pause, I apologize as I open this, and I know there's middle school and elementary families on our call today, and we're breaking this up into the elementary curriculum and the middle school curriculum. And we're doing that specifically because the needs of those learners are much, much different. So our curriculum is written in a way to accommodate and reach those different styles of learning at those different grade levels in a different way. So the first half of this will be geared toward those elementary students specifically, grades K through 5. And then I'll talk about middle school at the tail end of this. There'll be a lot of overlap in the supports that, but wanted to have that dividing line. And I suspect there could even be some families here that might have multiple students or multiple children and maybe a elementary student and a middle school student. So I'll be able to hit both of those grade bands. So on this elementary curriculum itself, this is a comprehensive curriculum that has been designed and written from the ground up to be a fully online delivery. This was not envisioned and doesn't have the tools built in to do a hybrid model or something that would be solely delivered in person. That's part of the reason in working with Jay and team that this was a good fit for what Steamboat Springs needed for those families that are deciding to go 100% virtual for your students. There's a lot of research and efficacy to back up this curriculum. We've been accredited by the accreditation bodies you see here, as well as being device friendly. So Jay mentioned those Chromebooks that will be issued. We are compatible with that. And if something should happen and you need to also log in on a personally owned device, if the district says that's okay, you're able to access that on MacBooks, Androids, whatever it might be. You can go ahead and roll over to the next slide, Jay. Within the elementary grades, I mentioned this is a comprehensive curriculum. So we obviously will offer the 4 core subjects, and then we'll make available as well as some of the specials that you see on the side. You could call them electives. The way these course offerings work is your students will have access to all 4 core subjects, and they'll have the ability to pick any 2 of those electives, specials, whatever you want to call them there on the right side of the screen. And Jay and that district coordinator will really be able to help with some decisions on what's going to be a good fit for you as far as those specials go, on what you want to take. Getting those enrolled will help with all of that stuff. You can go and roll to the next slide, Jay, and click it one more time for me. Thank you. So within our elementary grades, this is a little bit about how the courses themselves are structured. Obviously, in that K3 side, we're going to have 18 modules. One module equates to about a week worth. And then on the upper grades, fourth and fifth, one module is about 3 weeks long. And you'll see a little bit of time commitment there below, that recommended time on course. And that's based on the pacing that the system will recommend to stay on track for the end date that the district's going to set. So we'll really be aligned very closely to the Steamboat Spring District's academic calendar. We will actually be able to import that calendar into our platform, so the system won't be assigning any work to your students whenever their peers that might be on campus would be on vacation, for example. But also that recommended time within the course, that if you stay on that pacing, the system will automatically make sure that you have the assignments per day to stay on track and complete that language arts course, that math course on time when the end of the semester comes. And that's a really big thing to thinking about keeping students at home 100% virtual is, making sure that you're prepared to coach them and have the agency to stay on track. I'll talk a little bit more about that, what that role looks like, but that's something that's going to be a big expectation of some supports from people at home. So you can go and click over to the next slide for me, Jay. A little. The video, these lessons are going to be video based. And that's one important thing to wrap your head around if you're going to compare how your children have been learning up to this point, going into a classroom with a teacher, what we would call direct instruction, from a Steamboat Springs teacher. What this experience is going to be is that direct instruction, actually learning the standards 2 + 2 is 4, is going to be delivered in a video-based online format. Our teachers are there to obviously be the teacher of record, with the state to do the grading. But in addition to that, they are there for the one-on-one coaching that your students need. I'll get into the weeds a little bit more on what that interaction can look like with our teachers, but that's a really big first point to consider whenever you're looking at going virtual is your students will be interacting with a video-based digital learning platform for the direct instruction in this curriculum. There's a lot of supports for them to go through here that are both age appropriate as well as some translation functionality, things like that. And that's how they will be able to work through these courses at their own pace, what we would call asynchronously. So you can click to the next tab or the next slide for me, Jay. Modules for the semester, but it's not static in that our teachers are able to make edits and make changes if we need to, if there's some accommodations that individual students need, if they're struggling with something. And sometimes that could look like some teacher-led videos where they might need some extra coaching. The main thing I'm reiterating in that is we have the semester curriculum ready to go, and we balance that with enough flexibility to accommodate any special needs that as a student you might need, working with both Steamboat site coordinators and then our virtual teachers. You can go to the next slide, Jay. So in a day in the life of a Steamboat Springs student, pardon me, this would be look at what their dashboard actually looks like for students. They would click into any of these tiles to get to those lessons and then work through that curriculum on a daily basis following that, that recommended time on course. So you probably can suspect, and I spoke about this when I opened, that middle school learners, high school learners, they have a different level of agency than our elementary students do. And you, as elementary parents, know that better than anybody, what it's like trying to keep, your first graders' attention for more than 10 minutes sometimes. So to help with that, you can go to the next slide, Jay. This is one of the reasons that our elementary curriculum is written so much differently than our middle school curriculum, because we complement our digital learning environment, our digital learning actual presentations and with not only those online activities, but kinesthetic activities and offline assignments that are going to come in the form of worksheets, some science experiments in that kinesthetic side. And that's really vitally important for elementary learners in their development in the style that we're learning. Jay mentioned it at the beginning that there's no time where online learning or an online learning platform, whether that's Edgenuity or any other company in the country, that can deliver the same experience as an in-person teacher can. Steamboat Springs teachers are the experts at being able to really differentiate for your students, understand their needs, and make those changes in person and give them the scaffolds to be successful. We're trying to replicate that as much as we can and give the same supports to your students in a virtual setting. But that's something that's very important to consider as you're weighing the options of what's going to be the best fit for your student, your child. What those offline assignments look like, thanks for that transition, Jay, perfect timing. What those offline activities look like are physical workbooks. These will be supplied to Steamboat Springs in an actual booklet that has all of those activities and worksheets in that we can send home to parents. If you need another copy, you want to print them off at home yourself, we also make all of the digital versions of those worksheets available, so you can download those, print them off locally at any point. All of these activities will need to be graded by our teachers. So it's quite simple to turn those in. That's one question I get a lot. That's as simple as just snapping a picture on your smartphone after it's completed. And there's actually a portal on our platform itself that you're able to submit that completed worksheet to the teacher for grading. So I'm sure there's a flurry of questions that we can take at the end of that chat like Jay talked about, but I want to transition a little bit to talk about some of the support roles and most importantly, some of the supports that are going to need to be there at home if you choose to keep your elementary student there 100% virtual. So we mentioned, and I touched on, I'll talk more in a minute, about the Edgenuity supports that are going to be there. Well, elementary students, especially at those lower grade levels, are going to need a lot of guidance, a lot of coaching, and support when they're working through curriculum, whether that's in person, that's just behavioral management that our classroom teachers and Steamboat Springs are expert at, even just navigating our system at times. So we call it a learning coach. Anybody at home that'll be available to your students consistently can be a learning coach, can be a parent mentor, anybody that can consistently have the time to dedicate with your student. And you'll see some of the bullet points on the screen that highlight some of the responsibilities of a learning coach. And one of the most I can relay to parents is understanding that expectation and time commitment that you will need to be available for and ready to shoulder as you're supporting your students on the elementary level, working 100% virtually. One of the reasons that the Steamboat Springs staff and administrators selected our curriculum for your online students is because of how dynamic and engaging it is. This is not going to be an environment where your third grader is sitting on a computer for 5 hours a day and clicking through all 100% learning modules online. There are those offline activities. Navigating that will take some support and some influence and coaching from a parent at home. So if you want to flip to the next slide for me, Jay. We have a lot of structure built into supporting those learning coaches. That same daily structure I showed before for students in a normal day, you see on the bottom right there, that is a safe assumption and a safe expectation from that learning coach of the time that they're going to need to work with students within this curriculum as well. And to support our learning coaches, not only do we have a very large amount of guides and built-in supports in the platform itself, how-to videos, responsibility guides. We also have a full repository in our virtual school learning center that Jay's pulling up, solely dedicated to our parents and learning coaches. You can see it broken down by grade level there, in the form of videos, actual resources in PDFs, et cetera, et cetera. So I would recommend that any parent that is really thinking about going this route, 100% virtual with your student, take a look, maybe even download that, the appropriate grade level for your student, one of those learning coach resource guides, just to get a feel of what you'd be doing as a learning coach to make sure that it'd be the right fit for your family in going 100% virtual. But another point I wanted to make in showing that resource center is we're not leaving our parents and learning coaches high and dry. There are quite a large number of supports to help as they're working with students at home. I have just a note on some materials at home that would be supporting some of our science activities, some of those kinesthetic activities. Don't have to look too much into this because most of this is going to be available just around the house, but just also highlights the fact that, at these elementary grade levels, we do incorporate those resources beyond just live learning lessons. So that's a quick run through, by no means a deep dive of what that elementary content's going to look like. Jay, in your opinion, do you want me to go right into the middle school side, or do you want to take some questions on the elementary stuff, or wait to the end for that?
If you don't mind, let's just wait to the end. Go ahead to
Perfect.
the middle school.
Perfect. Is there anything I missed that you want to highlight on the elementary side, Jay, before we switch gears?
Chet, I think you got it. Appreciate it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So at the middle school level, again, consistent, same web of support for students. I'm going to go through a little bit more what these roles are. We saw this slide earlier in the presentation. You can go ahead and roll over the next slide for me, Jay. Here's a little bit of what you can expect from an Edgenuity teacher. Again, proactive support is there. Jay mentioned this before that, that's one of the things that sets our support for students using our instructional services apart, is that proactive communication with students. Our teachers will be available for one-on-one coaching with your students, whether that be elementary, whether that be middle school. That takes the form of phone calls, emails, even Zoom sessions like we're doing now, that can be scheduled for additional coaching, support. If you need any tutoring services there, they're fully available. We also, you can go to the next slide for me there, Jay. And our teachers are Colorado State certified instructors. A little bit more about the teacher on some of those bullet points, but what's most relevant here on this slide is that concept coach role. These concept coaches are on-demand tutors for students. I have the specific hours they're available on a slide in a minute, but they are available. When I say on demand, they're there to work as a complement to our teacher for your students. You can go and flip to the next slide actually for me, Jay, and hit it one or two more times. Yep, there, cool. So this is a screen grab of what a middle school level lesson would look like. Well, this is a high school lesson, but it's the same format for some of our middle schoolers. And this live support for students is available there on demand to either start a chat with our tutors. And if you can't get your questions answered that way, you can get a phone call, even a live video conferencing session with whiteboarding, anything we need to help work through problems with students. Those live on-demand tutors are available to you. You can hit one more slide for me, Jay. There's an example of some of that on-demand interactive whiteboarding we can do, especially for some of those hard sciences, math, science, where we need to model some things like graphing or division, factoring. That's hard to really relate to without some of that live coaching that students would be getting, in a brick and mortar from their teacher. Actually looks like at the secondary level. When I say secondary level, starting at that middle school side. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead of myself. Here's a little bit more about the hours that those concept coaches are available. And this is on Eastern time, so obviously Mountain time, that would be 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Mountain time. Apologize for that, but it was just a standard on the slide. I forgot to update it before I put it in the slideshow. But that's a look at what that would be as far as their availability. When we look at the curriculum itself, Jay mentioned one of the strong points of Edgenuity being our engagement and high levels of rigor. So this is just a screen grab of our middle school level curriculum, talking about multiplication in this example. That top right corner, that person is a real teacher. Now that teacher is not going to be live teaching the lesson in here talking about multiplication. They will be pre-recorded, but all of the modeling you see on screen, they're talking about the bus picks up, 5 students, and then the 2 + 2 + 2. That all is written by the teacher on screen. We're modeling these concepts in the same way that teachers would be doing in the brick and mortar in person, with a gradual release of information. We call it Bloom's taxonomy. When I'm talking to my educators, they kind of geek out on some of the pedagogy behind it. But that's some of the model that we operate on in putting together this curriculum. So that's a really important thing when we look at engaging students virtually, because it's not just a simple virtual textbook. We're not having just all of the standards and all the concepts on the screen that your students are going to have to read through and teach themselves. It's much more engaging and much more explicit instruction, as this slide says. I actually have just a 1-minute quick preview of this here. This is an Algebra 1 lesson, but pay mostly attention to the style of the way that the teacher's talking, and just the engagement here. Obviously, the skills would be for middle school level skills if your middle school students are engaging in this. So I'll stop talking and let it play for about a minute. I don't know if sometimes the volume doesn't go great through Zoom, but what I can do, Jay, is I have a couple videos linked from our website that I can put in the chat at the end that will have some specific lesson examples that parents are welcome to go to and see this live if they want to see some more, if that works for you, if that's easiest.
Yep, I can hear it.
Okay. Cool. And mostly just wanted to give the look and the feel a little bit more of the interactivity and that engagement with that teacher. So I'm trying to think if I've missed anything between these two curriculum sets. The main 2 points that I would hope parents can walk away from in looking at Edgenuity is that engaging curriculum that they'll get. We do come with a lot of rigor and a lot of efficacy, and just the expectation on the elementary side of that learning coach is going to be really important for parents to consider whenever they're weighing, what's going to be the best fit for their child and for their family. So if I miss anything, Jay, please let me know. I know we've had multiple conversations in the weeks leading up to this on what we wanted to cover. So I can conclude there and open up for questions whenever you're ready, Jay.
Sure. I appreciate that, Chad. That was a great overview of Edgenuity. I do, before we open up the chat box for question and answers, there is some information that I want to provide, is that I know in our earlier communication with parents, we were asking for a decision next week on Wednesday, August 5th, after talking to Dr. Meeks. We would like to push that date on that decision date to the following week, to Thursday, August the 13th. Again, the decision date has been moved from the 5th of August to Thursday, August 13th. Hopefully that'll give parents more time to explore Edgenuity, consider those options, as well as the district has plans on releasing more information to you about all the safety and mitigation plans that we have placed that are going to layer in support to protect our kids and staff members. Also, we're going to be hosting a town hall meeting on Thursday, August 6th at 10:30, 11:30. It's hosted by the pilot. So you'll be getting more information from the newspaper and that Facebook page if you want to tune in to that town hall meeting where more information about how we're opening up schools will be discussed. And so that's the reason why we wanted to move that date. So again, I don't know why I don't have it on the slide, but it's Thursday, August 13th. There will be on our website a place that just a simple little form to register if you choose that for the online learning. You'll just a few quick questions where you will register, and again that will be located on our website. And currently there is a link in some of the emails and communications that we sent to you. If you want to find that link and sign up, you can at this time. Also, we're planning, some people were asking, when does this start? When's the rollout? We would want to start that on August 24th. That's the same date as our in-person learning. Before that, those parents and students who've signed up, there will be an orientation night for the elementary students to their virtual teacher to get to know who that person is and start developing that relationship. So Chet and I would schedule that orientation night prior to the opening day of August 24th. Important also to know is that we're offering a 10-day trial period because we want this option to be something that you feel comfortable with and that does meet your child's needs. And so you would have 10 days starting on August 24th to try it out, make sure it fits, make sure it works. And if you doesn't fit and want to change your mind, we would allow at that point to go back into our in-person learning program and what phase that we're in. So that's important information for you to consider. And I think I'm going to stop there. I know that you probably have many, many questions. So Jennifer, if you don't mind opening up the chat box, and I'm going to have Amy Bomer, she's a principal at Soda Creek. She's going to help us by asking the questions. So Jennifer, if you don't mind opening up the chat, that'd be great.
Okay, the chat is open. There were already a lot of questions already coming in though.
Okay.
Can everybody see what
Yeah.
those are? Okay, well,
I can see starting with Robin Hall.
okay, there were a bunch before that, so I can copy those down.
Okay, can you copy and paste this? Okay.
Yeah.
So Robin wants to know, does my student have a human designated consistent teacher for the whole semester? How many other students does the teacher have?
Chet, do you mind taking that question?
Certainly. So for our grades K through 5, each the brick and mortar, you have Mrs. Smith for 4th grade. And that is the same teacher that will be assigned or work with that student throughout the semester. At the middle school level, those are subject specific, meaning you would have a math teacher, you would have a science teacher, you would have a social studies teacher.
Okay. Are all the students from Steamboat Springs School District, do we have an option to group specific students with a particular teacher?
Some of that will depend on how many total students we're supporting from Steamboat Springs, and how some of the staffing on our side matches. I know I'm not answering that question really directly. Yes, but if we have enough students to have them all grouped together, we can work on accommodating that. Some of it just depends on some of the levels of commitments we have on students versus teachers, and how many we need to assign to Steamboat Springs, for example, to make sure we have the right student-teacher ratios. So I can't say concretely yes until we know, what the final numbers of those virtual students would be.
And Chet, it kind of sounds like those questions are getting to the question about, is there peer-to-peer class time or connections?
Yeah, that's a really important point and a really good question for all of you that asked it. this virtual instruction is asynchronous, meaning each student is working at their own pace, working on their own. So in the structure of the curriculum itself, it doesn't have any peer-to-peer interaction within the lessons. Any of that synchronous time would be at the discretion of Steamboat Springs as a community to offer those students a chance to interact with peers. But actually going through the lessons and going through the curriculum itself, that wouldn't have any peer-to-peer interaction there.
Okay, and since it sounds like the online learning is not live, I assume there would be no assigned class time.
As far as you have to do, I'm assuming the question there is like, hey, you have to be working on math from 9 to 10, you have to be working on reading from 10 to 11. The answer to that is no. You are able to work at your own pace on whatever schedule fits your learner, as long as you're staying on track, obviously. The other thing to consider there would be the availability of our teachers. You know, we do have set contractual availability hours for our teachers, and it's not that they're available 24/7. But you will have access to the curriculum 24/7. So you have some flexibility there to set your own schedules of when and how you're accessing that curriculum.
Okay, how will grades work? Will they be recognized at the state level, and will state testing still take place?
Yeah, I can't comment on the state testing because that's a school district question, so I'll have to push that over to Jay.
Sure.
As far as the grades are concerned, you know, these are, in this delivery, you remain Steamboat Springs students. So we would continue to grade upon the same standards that Steamboat Springs grades, report grades the same way. And I'm going to turn the rest of that conversation over to Jay because that's more fit for their side of the house.
So, I was focusing on the question about the testing. Was that what you were asking me, Chet? Because I was prepared to answer that. Well, I'll answer the question about the state testing. Right now, the state is planning to do the state assessments in the spring, and so students who would, you are a Steamboat Springs School District student, so you would have the opportunity to participate in those state testing. So yes.
Okay, if my student advances quickly beyond the assigned curriculum, could they move up a level, or how far ahead or behind can they get?
So we work in collaboration with the district on how far ahead you want it to get, but as far as the limitations of the program, there aren't any. You are able to work at your own pace and work ahead at if your student's able to, especially for some high performing students if they do want to do that. As far as falling behind, we have a very, very strong and thought out response matrix for students that are falling behind and the actions that we take to support those students. And that works in coordination with, the Steamboat Springs staff to offer the supports that students need to keep from falling behind, whether that be, one-on-one tutoring, interventions, things like that. I think that's getting to the heart of the question.
Okay, and from Catherine George, will Edgenuity provide foreign language instruction at the middle school level?
We do have at the middle school level, yes, we do have foreign language courses. Spanish, French, German, and I can't remember off the tip of my tongue if we have Chinese. I'll look at the course list and can confirm. But simply put, yes, we do have foreign language available at the middle school level.
I'll go ahead and ask the question from Jamie. Can the assignments be adjusted if a student is advanced in a subject? Will they have the same amount of work that is more challenging?
So the lessons themselves won't be adjusted, but if we need to we can assign more advanced coursework for those higher performing students if we need to. Some of that will go into that relationship with our teacher and what your student individually needs and how we need to make adjustments for your individual student. It is very much a relationship with your virtual teacher, just like you would have a relationship with your brick and mortar in-person teacher, to adjust what we need to keep your student challenged. But actually having different, you know, if a third grader, or let me use a sixth grade example, a sixth grader in math, you know, if they're on grade level working in math, the curriculum itself won't be adjusted to be more difficult. But if they're at a higher grade level, they can take higher grade level courses. Like if their sixth grader takes seventh grade math, for example, they would be able to do that.
I think that is, Chet, just an important piece that would need to be discussed with the school principal, and making sure that that adjustment is what is best, you know, for the child. And so I know that Heidi and Joe think very carefully on the placement of students at the middle school and putting them in the right courses. So that would be a conversation to have with them.
Yep, and that's a really important thing to bring up, Jay. I'm glad you did, because at the end of the day, you know, this is a Steamboat Springs program. The standards that our teachers will live up to, the curriculum and the courses that students take, across the board will maintain the expectations and the policies of Steamboat Springs School District. The virtual students won't have a different set of expectations as far as what courses they're allowed to take compared to their peers on campus.
Okay. I froze, so I lost a bunch of questions. So
We're at, will there be YouTube videos, or will the curriculum be contained in this system entirely?
Yes, all of the direct instruction learning activities are on this system itself. The only areas that we have the students work outside of the platform is at the elementary level with those workbooks or kinesthetic activities. The middle school level will be entirely contained within our platform.
can you keep reading questions, Jay? When you freeze, they just load you back up right where it started. So I'm at.
Amy, not a problem.
Okay.
Can students work ahead?
Yeah, we touched on that one already, I think.
Yeah, we did. Time commitment for 2 or more kids surely varies for the guide.
Yeah, some of that will depend on the grade level of your students, Meg. You know, if you have a kindergartner or a first grader, some of the things that you're going to be needing to do with those students are going to look a lot different for a fourth or fifth grader. So it's easiest to compare some of those recommendations on those resources we have for you to know what some of that time commitment would be. You would be able to do those simultaneously, though, if you're overseeing 2 students.
Maya says those hours seem like quite a bit for kinder and first. Is that accurate for the little ones?
Yes, as far as the laid out to do to stay on pace with the curriculum, and you know, we can look at, yeah, I'll answer it that way. Yes.
Yeah. How many students does I assume the Edgenuity virtual teacher have at the elementary and also at the middle school?
Yeah, our internal and our instructional services student to teacher ratio is 50-1. That you'll probably think that's higher than what on-campus teachers have. That's partly because they don't have the same, you know, behavior monitoring, you know, just organizing their class and keep students on pace. So they're able to accommodate and support more students than a brick and mortar teacher can have. So that's at the elementary level. It's a little bit at the middle school level, probably closer to 75, but not more than that.
Molly is asking, is there a way to try the system before school starts? And Molly, I think you, like I said, you're aware of the 10-day trial period. I know that Chet and I have to do quite a bit of logistics to get this primed and ready for August 24th. Chet, I'm not sure if that's a possibility or not, but I want to press upon you that we do have that 10-day trial. That was new information that we didn't have the last time we sent out communication.
Yeah, I'll have to talk with you offline about that, Jay, on the easiest way to do that. Um,
Okay.
until we can talk.
So Molly, we'll explore that, and if it's a possibility, we will let the people who indicate or signed up for interest know if that is an option. Summer asks, if my student has an IEP, how is that considered in this? Chet, do you mind talking about the special ed supports?
Great question, Summer. So we do have a special education team within our instructional services. They are SPED certified. So how that works is we work in coordination with Steamboat Springs special education staff. Steamboat Springs staff actually creates that IEP, and the Edgenuity teachers execute that. So we would do any of the adaptations to the curriculum that that plan calls for, any of the hours or time that it calls for in one-on-one time with your child for coaching, for direct instruction, that type of thing. Simply put, we have that infrastructure to support that. We just don't write the IEPs. That's something that still comes from the normal special education.
Right. Are all the facilitators at Edgenuity certified teachers?
Yes.
Tracy is asking, what are we held accountable to for Edgenuity? Our first grader does not stay engaged online, and there's no way he can do 3 to 4 hours online per day. Could we use this curriculum and turn in assignments to still get credit, or is there a minimum requirement for fulfillment of online curriculum in order to complete first grade, for example?
I'm rereading the question really quick to make sure I understand what the heart of it is. Jay, feel free to interject as you're.
Yeah, and I think the struggle of keeping the kids engaged, you know, with looking at a screen. And I know, Chet, you talked about how the assignments aren't just completely 100% online virtual watching videos. There are other engaging activities that our elementary kids are participating in. But I do think that, you know, if you choose the online component, it is essential that those videos are watched. And that's the challenge of online learning. And there's no really way to escape that. This is an essential part of the success is watching those videos and how those online instructors are modeling. So absolutely, you know, that's the reason why I would say, and Chet disagree with me, that why online learning can be very challenging the younger the students are, because they want to play, they want to get up, they want to move, they want to, you know, do other things. And so that's a real challenge for younger kids with online learning.
I buffered a little bit. Apologies if I missed something.
So the question from Maya, are there specials electives, are the specials or electives required or optional? Chad, I don't know how you want to say that, but we've given, I think, Maya, you're speaking from an elementary standpoint. If you are choosing not to do the 2 electives and stay with the core, I don't see that as a problem. We have a part of our agreement purchase up to 6 courses for our elementary age kids. So, Chad, would that be a problem if we said, you know, this student just wants the cores?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective at Edgenuity, we're not requiring you to take any of them. You just have those available. So if you decide you don't want to have any of those specials, it's not an issue as far as the curriculum is concerned, as far as Edgenuity is concerned. They really are opt-in if you want to take them, and they're for you.
Okay, thank you. But I think, Maya, it is the expectation that they would be enrolled in the core subjects. Could we have multiple teaching coaches, parents assisting the kids? I believe
Yeah,
Chad
Karen,
pointed out with that network of supports, that Edgenuity as well as our local mentor. But if you want to speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I think what Karen's getting at is probably that learning coach at home. And, you know, Karen, yes, definitely. You can certainly have multiple people be a learning coach. I would just recommend anybody that wants to do that, make sure they go through all of the supports we have there and the training videos, the guides, so they understand what to do. And if that question is more geared to, are we going to have multiple tutors or multiple teachers, the actual concept coaches, that on-demand tutoring, you will get different tutors every time because we have those people that are available on demand for all of our students. So you won't get the same tutor every time, but you will have the same teacher for your course throughout the semester. But at home role, you most certainly can have multiple people supporting your students.
The next question is, if in-person school has to shut down, will the whole district move to this company? No. Or if we have to move to distance learning, then we would not be putting all of the students onto Edgenuity. We would ask the teachers of record in the school buildings to conduct distance learning. And the students who are participating online would continue with Edgenuity. So yeah, I hope that was clear. Is there any option for that live video instruction for K-5? Of the estimated time commitment, what percentage is not specifically video for K students? So for example, the kinesthetic activities.
Yeah, Aaron, I apologize. I don't have a hard number to tell you the percentage there, but what I can do is I can get Jay the breakdown of what that would be as a follow-up to share. I just don't have the exact breakdown of what that would be. You know, if you're working on an hour of math, how much of that hour is, you know, video-based versus how much is it of it is a workbook activity. I think that's what you're getting at. Apologize, I don't have it right in front of me, but I can get that breakdown and send it to Jay to share with families.
I believe we answered the question about the IEPs, so I'm going to move on to the next one. Can students do work in semester 2 while still in semester 1?
If they want me to take that one, Jay, or you want to comment first?
Go ahead, Chad. And I know that the challenge with that would be that transitioning at the semester of if we're moving kids, you know, back into the school system at that point, and just the alignment of the curriculum of, you know, with the pacing of what our students are doing in the brick and mortar versus the online. And there could be some inherent challenges with that. Obviously, if we're moving forward and pacing with the online is going faster, and then moving back and our kids are like, I've already learned this. I did this on Edgenuity. That, you know, is going to be the inherent challenge. And so that's the reason why I think it would be important and prudent for the students to try to stay on pace with the semester, how it's paced with Edgenuity, to not create that discord. Chet, what are your thoughts on that?
I was going to defer to what the policy of the district was. I can speak to it more from a technical perspective, you know, but it would be in line with what, you know, your students' principals and district staff would recommend there. From a technical perspective, you know, they can't be enrolled in both semesters at the same time. You know, the courses are broken up by semester, so they would have to complete semester 1 and then be enrolled in semester 2. But I'll defer to the policy of the school district on how you want to make that available.
Jamie, it's a good question, and it's something we'll definitely consult with the principals about. Jessica asks, what are the requirements for login? Will it be daily logins, or will we be able to do it on our time? Can we move ahead if our student is ahead?
Yeah, we covered the move ahead part a little bit there. Obviously, you're allowed to move ahead to some extent, and we're not restricting you from moving ahead. It's not like the system will stop you if you complete Monday's activity and then you want to work on some of Tuesdays. The system will not stop you and say, hey, it's not Tuesday, you can't do that yet. So the system intrinsically will allow you to work at your own pace. And the requirements for login, I think what you might be asking about is if there's a set time that students have to be logged in and online. The answer to that is some of that will depend on Steamboat Springs policy, but some of the flexibility you get from virtual learning is the ability to control that schedule yourself. So the system will allow you, Edgenuity's platform will allow you to log in as your schedule allows. Just also consider is the available hours of our support staff on when you need them. So if you need to front load some time or maybe in the evenings, just plan some of that around whenever you might need some supports from our staff based on what they're contractually available for, if that makes sense.
What is student-teacher ratio? I believe you covered that.
Yep.
How will foreign language classes be handled? I think we talked about that. We do there's French and Spanish as well as other languages that Edgenuity offers. So that is an option.
And I pulled up the course list, and as I'm talking about that, we have Spanish, French, Chinese, German, and Latin at the middle school level.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify at the middle school level. Will attending the distance learning program affect my child's eligibility to attend the trip to France next summer? Molly, I'm not able to answer that. That's something that I'd have to defer to Heidi and might have to get back to you on.
Okay, that's not a school-sponsored trip, so that's outside the school, so I don't think that's relevant.
Okay.
But students would be able to be involved in any other activities or enrichment opportunities or competitions that we have if they're on the online school. But that particular trip is not a school-sponsored trip.
Thank you, Heidi. Will Steamboat Springs District be monitoring or assessing if the online students are on track with focused standards? Yes, that's one of the roles our advisor would be doing, is checking in to make sure that we're on pace and to make sure that there aren't any struggles, as well as the virtual teacher would be monitoring that carefully as well. And as Chet said, engaging the different supports that Edgenuity has to offer. But absolutely, that would also be one of the responsibilities of our on-site supports as well. Will middle school curriculum also include offline and kinesthetic learning in addition to the online as with the elementary?
No, the middle school curriculum would be all virtual.
I live in Stagecoach and needed to open enroll my student in the district. If I were to choose a different online school this year, will we still have our place at school next year?
I can answer that, Jay.
Thank you, Brad.
So if you enrolled in a different online program that wasn't sponsored by the district, this happens in just other cases too. If somebody's open enrolled, but then they maybe return to their home district, or you would have to reapply to come back into the district. So.
Yep. Can students skip content already mastered, and how does that work?
So they cannot physically skip it. They will have to work through that curriculum sequentially in Edgenuity. And that's one big differentiator between our curriculum and others, is students do have to work through to make sure they get those foundational skills and concepts as they move through the curriculum. Now, if your student, some of that can be, you can work with your teacher to adapt some of that curriculum if you've already demonstrated a really high level of mastery, but that's at the guidance of both, the Steamboat Springs administrators, principals, et cetera, and that site coordinator working with our teachers to know what we need to adjust that curriculum to be to fit your students' needs. But just from the get-go, from the default setting, students do need to work sequentially through all of that curriculum throughout the semester.
Is there any way to opt into this for 2 subjects, language arts and math, and our own homeschool curriculum on the other 2? Maya, I think is something that we will need to discuss and get back to. And we're going to hopefully have an FAQ. We're going to take a lot of these questions and put it into a document so that we can answer and share with other parents who weren't able to participate in that. So that is something that we will get back to you on. Okay, Maya? Can we see the list of classes that are offered for the middle school before we have to decide? Yeah, absolutely. Chad, I don't know if there's any way to pull that up right now, or
if you'll make me a co-host or give me the permission to share my screen, I can put that on the screen.
Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah, there you go.
And of course, we'll put that link into that FAQ so that you can browse it and look at it more thoroughly.
And this is in, this is in 2 pages on where all the middle school curriculum is. So if you're looking at 1 page, just know it's not 100% comprehensive. If you're just seeing what's on the screen, there's more on the page below this as well.
And I think, Jay, just to add to that, the one thing about Edgenuity that we liked was they do have integrated math, because we know a lot of our middle school kids are on that pathway, and the world language component, and then also a robust assortment of elective classes.
While you're scrolling through that, Chad, I'm going to go to the next question. For dyslexia, can written curriculum be easily converted to voice?
Yes.
Chad, is that one? I think that's one of the features of Edgenuity. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, we do have a text-to-speech function that will read out loud that text for students.
Question is, how does the teacher, and I assume that's the virtual teacher, establish a relationship with the students, especially in elementary? Do they call? Are there socially distanced gatherings?
Yeah, so on the gathering side, no. We don't have any in-person interaction with students, live in-person interactions, I should say. The communication takes the form of everything from, if the district allows it, we have a software in our platform that allows our teacher to text with parents to set up those conferences. Then we also have phone calls, emails, and regular video conferences. So just like you have in a brick and mortar where you have an opportunity to meet your teacher, go on site, meet your teacher, we have that available as well to kick off the semester with Edgenuity. So you would be able to meet, Mrs. Smith, your 3rd grade teacher for the semester, for example, and then have that continual contact with your teacher on a weekly, daily basis. If you need daily basis, scheduling that time with them to continue to form that relationship. And because the student to teacher ratio isn't incredibly high, they're able to form some of those relationships with your family, with your students, that learning coach.
Good question. I think I answered Michelle's about a resurgent, that the kids that are in the brick and mortar in the phases would not be joining Edgenuity. They would be doing distance learning with the teacher of record at their school. How often will teacher from the program have contact, and how often will the mentor have contact? Would the mentor be the same as the brick and mortar teacher? No, it would not be the same teacher as the brick and mortar. There would be a specially assigned teacher at the school to be the mentor with your student. It would not be the in-class teacher that your student is currently assigned to. Ched, did you want to, I know you've talked about the contact before.
Is that still the same? Are we still on the same question about the mentor and the brick and mortar teacher?
Yeah, and just the how often will the teacher from the program have contact? I think
Oh,
that's the
yeah.
virtual teacher. You just, yeah.
Some of that will depend on the need of the student. You know, that could look like weekly, it could look like daily, depends on each student and what you need.
Okay. I have a question from Aaron. Will Steamboat Springs School District support families that want to use an offline program, homeschool? We would like to stay enrolled, but stay at home with our first and second grader, but would prefer to teach them more traditionally and then rejoin Strawberry Park next year. So I think the question is that you wouldn't be using Edgenuity, you'd be using your own program, but that you would like your child still enrolled in our district and return to Steamboat Springs or Strawberry Park next year. Aaron, there are going to be policies that the state is requiring from us as far as attendance and instructional time. And obviously what Ched and Edgenuity is outlining meets those expectations that we have to follow with state policy. So we are going to be constrained to some of that. And so I think that there could be some challenges with what you're suggesting, because we have to abide by those state policies. I'm going to clarify that, and we'll add that to our FAQ.
I also think, Jake, that gets to the point that, for example, at Soda Creek right now, we're full at our 3rd grade and 5th grade level. So any new enrollment at the 3rd grade and 5th grade level currently has to go to Strawberry Park, and that just changes year to year based on numbers. So that is one of the issues. If you leave the district and come back, that can be an issue.
Amy, thank you for clarifying that and adding that information. How is a student with a 504 plan supported? Ched, I believe those 504 plans are shared with your teachers and are provided those supports. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Yep. So it's very similar to the IEP conversation that we had. The question about, do we provide speech therapy services, or will that go through Soda Creek? And that would go through Soda Creek. And I know the principal and Anne Marie, special education director, are working on how to provide those services. So that would not be going through Edgenuity. Will Steamboat Springs School District recommend classes for students based on past performance? And I think, you know, at the middle school level, absolutely. That's where we'd have to work closely with Heidi and Joe on what those placements would look like. What has the district done to prepare for phase 1 learning for in-person students? Phase 1, for people who aren't familiar, is the distance learning, kind of what we ended the school year on. We are, as you probably know, we have an entire week plus 1 day of training where we're going to be identifying areas where we can improve and make the distance learning even better. We're going to be, principals and I have talked about making sure that there's consistency and standardization across our grade levels and teams. And so there's going to be a lot of teaming to make sure, you know, the successes and the many amazing learning opportunities are consistent at the different grade levels. We're also bringing in lots of different supports, whether it's technical support and training, as well as augmenting with digital resources that we didn't have at that time back in the spring. So a lot is going on during that week training to help prepare our teachers with that. We are sending teams to a blended learning courses, and those teachers are coming back and training their colleagues on the best practices of blended learning. And blended learning is using those digital resources with in-person activities and teaching strategies, so that as we move through the different phases, that those blended learning pedagogy can be used in all of those phases. So a lot to put in place, but we got some amazing teachers who are going to be working on what that phase one could be. If there's a shutdown, will it be possible for those kids who originally participated in the in-person learning to choose Edgenuity at that point rather than the local distance learning? At this time, Lisa, that would not be an option. It would be moving to that distance learning that is provided by our Steamboat Springs teachers. Could we have multiple kiddos with different learning coaches each day? Chet, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Would they have different learning coaches each day? The learning, oh, go ahead, Chad. Learning coaches.
Yeah, the learning coaches at home, you know, the main thing to consider there is just making sure whoever is supporting the students at home understand the importance of that role and the responsibilities of that role. If there are two different people that are going to do that, maybe mom in the morning, dad in the afternoon, that's completely doable, as long as the people that are going to be supporting those students understand and up to speed on what that role and support entails.
Question is, it sounds like there is no attendance taken. As long as students are getting work done, it is a flexible schedule. As Chet said, from their side, you're right that that's what's very nice about online learning, that is the pacing can go by the student. There are going to be some state policies that we're going to have to follow as far as attendance and seat time. So we're going to need to adhere to those, and we're still waiting for the state to define what that attendance policy will be for online students. We would get that information out so that you're clear on those expectations once the state releases that.
And I want to clarify one point on the attendance question, Jay, if I can.
Sure.
This platform itself has a very high level of transparency between all people involved. And what I mean by that is the data tracking, the progress monitoring, the completion rates, what students and what teachers are communicating with and by what regularity is all available to administrators, our teachers, and parents. So we have the ability and have the data to physically track attendance and engagement. And when I say engagement, there's a difference between idle time, just a student logged on to our platform, and engaged time when they're actually working and moving through lessons. So we have a very, very robust infrastructure to report on all those data points. But what's great about that is I go back to that transparency of information where there's no data point that our teachers can see, that parents can't, that also the school district can't. So that on-site coordinator will be able to see all of that same data and progress monitoring, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not that, I don't want to confuse the statement of no attendance with no accountability.
If we were in phase 2, which students would still qualify for in-person learning? IEP, SPED, other. Phase 2 is where a majority of the students would be doing distance learning, and certain special populations would provide supports at the school. And you're correct, the students with IEP and special education services would be identified, as well as the newcomers, students who are new to our country and new to English, who need those language supports. Will the liaison be a teacher, and what will the interaction look like? I think we talked about that. It will be a school district teacher, and they will be not providing instruction and tutorial because Edgenuity offers that. It's just more connecting, as Heidi said, to some of the activities and events and connecting them to a counselor if needed, and any supports as far as mental health, but also just engaging and checking and monitoring to make sure the progress is being done, and networking with the different supports that Edgenuity has. Edgenuity option for the high school, it is. There we are, Edgenuity, we decided this week to adopt Edgenuity for our high school. We have a presentation next Monday, similar to this, where we're going to be addressing how Edgenuity serves online students at the high school. So more, please tune into that Zoom meeting. How do teachers manage video conferences and texting with 50 students and affiliated parents?
That goes back to the platform itself, being able to do a lot of that very, very efficiently. And also a lot of that isn't all, it's not, they're synchronous with individual students. So not every single student is needing a synchronous session at the exact same time. So they're able to have those time commitments for every student as needed. And those are by appointment. So the teacher conferences are by appointment, and the concept coaches and tutors are on demand.
Will the district offer programs to connect the in-person kids with the virtual learning kids? I think there could be opportunities with that. I just know that as far as connecting to the instruction and the academic time, no, that would be where the Edgenuity services, instructional services come in. But I think it might be something that we could explore with our in-person mentor to provide some type of connection with their classmates. So that's a good question. There was one question, I know we're approaching 5:30, that I wanted to ask, that just to clarify, if a student chooses the online program, they are still considered a Steamboat Springs School District student. How does this choice affect funding for the district? Does the district get to include the student on the rolls so that they receive funding for the students in the online program? That is correct. They are, we would still receive state funding for your student who's enrolled with the online program. As we said, they're a student and we still want to treat them and respect them for those choices. So they are a student, and we would also receive funding for them. Within the 10-day trial period, can a student go from in-person to online? I think that's where they're asking if we can get into the school year and move back to the Edgenuity. Right now, we're asking for you to make that decision on Thursday, August 13th. As you can imagine, we're working hard, administrators, on developing cohorts of students and class placement and balancing those schedules out. While it would be great if we say, yeah, sure, you can come back in, but we are doing a lot of those logistics that we need to know which students are returning in person. And so we ask that you would make that decision by next Thursday, or not next Thursday, but by Thursday, August the 13th. When do we have to come by and pick up Chromebooks by, and from where? Will there be a list for school supplies needed for online schooling? We'll get that information out to you as far as when that Chromebook pickup is. I don't have a specific date on that, but obviously it would be before August 24th, before the first day of the program. A list of school supplies, Chet, is that something that they do, that we would do in advance?
Yes. And the school supplies are very, very minimal. And I can send you, Jay, anything that would be there. The majority of it, if there is anything, would be things you probably already have from home, at home. Other than that workbook, which is included in that enrollment that we send out.
question is, when will the district decide when we will start phase 4 or phase 3 or other? Brad, I'm not sure if you're still on there. I know that he's working closely with the Department of Health and with the school board and moving forward with that recommendation.
I'm on, Jay. So yeah, tomorrow we have a board special meeting. We're going to be talking about the different phases on where we're at this point. Obviously trying to, track everything that's changing with CDE and the guidelines. We're also, I think, as Jay said earlier, we're going to host a public town hall with through the pilot next Thursday as well. And I know people want to make, us to make a decision as quickly as possible. I think at this point with the data the way it is, I think it's, highly unlikely that we're going to be in phase 4 across the whole district. So we're looking at, phase 3 more closely, and that'll be part of the board discussion tomorrow is, even if we open in phase 3, what, safety measures can we have in place? We're still, we meeting every day, and because each of the levels looks a little different on what we think we'd have to put in place to make that work. So, I'm hoping we have a good discussion with the board tomorrow, and we can get closer to that. But I'm saying we're probably at this point closer to phase 3 than we are to phase 4.
We have a few more questions, and so it's 5:33. I thank all of you for joining. I'm going to answer these last few questions, and then we're going to close it off. I think the question was about Edmentum. Is it the same as Edgenuity? No, those are two different companies. And after the principals and I looked at the product of Edgenuity and what they're able to offer, we thought it was the best interest of our students to move to Edgenuity. More description of the courses online somewhere. Is it possible to try a simple course before we need to choose? I think I answered that about the sample course. I'm not sure if we'll be able to do that in that time frame. As far as more of a description, Chad, there is a
yeah, I can get you those descriptions to include in the FAQ, Jay. We have, what I have on the screen here is just a course list, but we do have a catalog that includes all those descriptions and more detail there. It's a little bit more expansive, because it has that much detail. So I can follow up with you on that, Jay, to include that in that FAQ.
Jed, do you have Edgenuity average test scores? I'm not sure if talking about the CMAS or PSAT or SAT.
Yeah, I can't really answer that question without knowing the assessment. We also, Edgenuity as an entity, we don't have or do not correlate or use CMAS or state test scores as a metric for our own curriculum. We have a number of research studies on our website that I can show you, Jay, to include that FAQ or put on the screen that have a couple success stories from our partners that have shown some sizable growth in their either CMAS scores or independent scores via NWEA MAP or Renaissance Star, if any parents are familiar with those. So we have the efficacy studies to back this up that I can share with you, but I can't, it's such a moving target to say what are the specific test scores based on the scale that we support students. We have over 4 million students that access and use our curriculum annually. So that varies a lot based on the geographic region. So I can even get you some stuff specific to Colorado there, Jay, to speak to that a little bit more specifically.
I appreciate that. Got a question. Why is the rating of the online program so low? Can you provide information on the weakness of the program? I know that it was brought attention to there was a poll that was going on where Edgenuity received a low rating, and when we were exploring and researching, I think it's important for people to know that poll was conducted by 8 people by responding, and that's a customer review, and it wasn't I don't think a fair statistical poll if we're basing that on 8 people participating in that. And so I'm not sure if that is where the question's coming from, but I know that speaking with other districts in our school, in our state, as well as the online research that I conducted with our principals, that we feel very confident with Edgenuity and the product that they provide. As far as weaknesses, I think Chet and I have talked about this, that, you know, the challenges is this is online learning, and it's not going to be with classroom of peers, and that's challenging. And as much as we'd like to return in person, and we understand that the comfort levels that different people may have, and that you feel that it's best to keep your child at home. But I think that's just the inherent challenge of online learning at home, is the connections that might not be as strong as obviously in a brick and mortar school. I don't know if Chet, if you wanted to add to that.
No, I think you spoke to it well. Just to be, you know, just to fully plan on some of the different styles there. There's, you know, at the end of the day, there's nothing that's going to be able to replace your in-person experience with a Steamboat Springs teacher. You know, that's going to be a very valuable student for its development. We're here to be able to help give you options to make sure your students can stay safe on the way that, you know, you as a parent feel best for those students. So yeah, I think Jay, you did a good job of summating it.
This is going to be the last question. Sorry, I'm sorry, but it's 5:38. And we'll, like I said, we'll put all these questions, probably condense them to themes, so that's not, you know, the 80 or 90 questions exactly, but we'll put this in a FAQ style. Last question is, for those not choosing online learning, will the district go back to using Infinite Campus as a central location for grade information? That is correct. We will still continue to have Infinite Campus, where you can check attendance and grades and the student data that Infinite Campus provides for those people not in the online program. So with that said, I can't thank you enough for your participation and hanging in there for an hour and 40 minutes. I appreciate where you are and respect the decisions that are in front of you and the stresses and challenges that are. We as school district understand that, and we will continue to provide support to your kids, and look forward to that partnership. So thank you very much for your time, and be going to our website. We're in the process of creating a special block on our website, where all this information and links to this video, as well as documents and some of the things that Chad said that he's going to provide to me, we're going to get that on a specific block on our website, as well as where you can register if you're interested in going online. So thank you very much, and have a great day. Thank you.